Okay, so John Bubbles O'Dwyer has retired from inter-county hurling, and that's why we're talking about the top 5 wristy hurlers of the 21st century. This is not going to be an easy list to do, but we'll try and get through it quick enough. We won't keep you here all day doing this because there's lots of big other stories to talk about. But who's coming into the conversation for you? Who's the I cannot leave this person out of the list?
Owen Kelly from Tip.
Yeah. So he's straight in at number 1. Fair enough.
I tell you, he's very, very high. He won't be far off number 1, I'd say. Remember hearing when he was growing up, I don't know who told him or someone told him to be doing, like, he did heavy enough early, be doing figure of eights, left hand, right hand, figure of eights. And you just see, look, I'm not being smart, like me and you, with the best will in the world, wouldn't have been the riskiest. I know.
Be careful what you say, Bernie.
We definitely wouldn't be the riskiest. And then you've seen lads, we come up against lads, and they're able to do, like, you know, the backhand tennis smash in tennis, you know, we're able to go like that, and you see a lad coming in like Owen Kelly, just able to flick a ball like that and generate so much power. Someone who probably won't be on the top 5 list, Shane, and you mightn't know much about him, but Andy O'Brien from Waterford, or from Wicklow, I should say, some of the best wrists I've ever seen. He plays a bit of handball. I just remember a ball dropping in around the square in a ring match, and he just went like that, just threw his hand at it like that, flicked the ball, and just flew into the net. Like he just brilliant wrists as well. He's probably not going to make the top 5, but
is he Pat's Greystones or is he Arrows?
Pat's in Wicklow Town. Yeah, outrageous wrists, serious wrists.
I think I might have played against him in a challenge match a while back, but some good players in every county. But Owen Kelly, Cian Lynch, and Joe Canning, says Fergus Butler. They'd be in the bracket. I mean, it depends on what you mean. So again, like yesterday, and I'm not for a second saying that he's in this list, but like Bonner Maher was playing in that Dylan Quirk match, and like there's very few people with as good a first touch as him. Now he mightn't be the greatest ball striker in the world, but in terms of first touch, unreal. And I'd say the same about Cian Lynch. Unbelievable touch, unbelievable tricks, flicks, all that kind of stuff. But I'm not sure if in terms of wristy striking, and he is a very good striker, if he'd be in my top 5 here.
I wouldn't disagree. Like, I'd have Patrick Corrigan ahead of most of those players when it comes to wrist. Like, and I marked him at close quarters one time. I remember being in on top of him in Tullamore one day, and he just literally just went like that and struck the ball 45 yards without rate. Like, I think that's more what we're talking now. If you're talking like, you know, most skillful player, I think is a different argument. Like, Gerard Hegarty's obviously a class player as well. Would you say he's wristy? I wouldn't say he's as wristy as Owen Kelly or Patrick Corrigan. I think that's maybe a different conversation.
Would you put the likes of your Richie Hogans in there?
You would, yeah. You'd put Richie in there, all right. And even just thinking of how wristy that was, the goal against Cork a couple of years ago, and flicking kind of that reverse flick back. I definitely would have him in the conversation. He's obviously got that kind of handball background as well, where you need to just think about how loose your wrist has to be and how strong it has to be able to play a sport like that off left and right. He obviously had that famous dummy hand pass back in the day, and he was obviously able to hand pass the ball 30 or 40 yards as well. I'd probably have, I'm just thinking, like, TJ would be wristy, but would he be that wristy? I think Richie Hogan would probably be wristier. Is wristier?
I think it is. I think it is. Collins English Dictionary might enter this in next year after watching this video. What about Shane Dowling, Noel McGrath, obviously John Bubbles O'Dwyer, Joe Canning is in there as well.
Dowling got that brilliant goal for the Pierce Street, didn't he? Remember the block down and then the
Pierce against Schlockneil.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Man, he obviously got that brilliant batted goal as well. I don't know if is that wristiness though. Do you know what I mean? What's the definition? What's the Webster's dictionary definition here?
I think it's all quite spurious. It's hard to nail it down. You just know it when you see it.
No, actually, that's 100%. It's hard to describe it, but when you see it, you're like, great hands, great wrists. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just he's lovely hands.
Is there a greater compliment to an Irish person than to say they have great hands?
Oh no, and I generally the term down home I find is lovely hands rather than great hands.
Oh, okay, lovely hands. Yeah, we'd always say great hands. Yeah.
DJ qualifies played at the beginning of the century. Lads, you need to define wristy first. Matthew, we'd love to. Jason Ford, top of the list, says Boom Boom 43. He is wristy.
He is wristy, yeah, in fairness, he is wristy. Like Noel McGrath'd be very wristy as well, wouldn't he?
Oh, he'd wrists all day for you.
Just let me take
Here, look, what about this working list? How are you feeling about this? I'm not
Well,
necessarily
hold on a
sticking in
second
it.
now. Hold on a second now.
Hey, look,
So,
I'm not sticking to it. I'm just saying that's what we have at the moment.
the origin, you don't have, like, this is mad. I know you have a tip man up the top, so you're handy. But basically, the origin or the genesis of this idea came from John Bubbles Risto Dwyer. I mean, you don't have him in the top 5.
Well, I'm not saying he's not in the top 5. I just threw
He's,
down a few names haphazardly.
well, Bubbles is definitely in the top 5.
Is he number 1?
I don't know if he's number 1. He's definitely in the top 5, though. Like, of the tip team, oh yeah, of that generation that's come since. He's right up there. I still have Son of God up number 1 now, I have to say.
Would you have Bubbles ahead of Noel McGrath?
I would, yeah.
And would you have Patrick Horgan ahead of him?
Can I just ask you here now, right?
Yeah.
On Joe Canning.
Yeah.
Are we talking risks, like, when you think of Joe? Is that the first thing, or is it just that he's unbelievably skillful? Or would risk be the one that would jump out to you, if you get me?
I know what you're saying. I think sometimes, like, when I think of riskiness, I think of a lad strikes the ball and it just absolutely takes off. And you know, like sometimes you see a golf player hit a shot and it takes off, and then after a little bit, it seems to take off again. So I do think he's incredible power in his striking. I wouldn't put him ahead of Bubbles. And like even that Bubbles goal against Galway in 2016, was it? Yeah. I mean, very few people could score a goal like that.
The bounce off the ground effort, yeah, that was brilliant. So that was one of the main reasons they won the All-Ireland. I probably would have Bubbles ahead of Joe. Now, this is ML89. What he says there is he's totally correct. Canning's goals with Cork in 08, that was an unbelievable goal. Kilkenny Leinster final in 12. But are they wristy? You know, are they wristy goals? I'm not sure. Are they? You know, it's hard to describe what we're talking about. Now, if you're talking about wrist, what he's able to do, what his wrists are able to do from a line ball, nobody has ever done it before, and maybe no one will ever do it again. Like, I think we could still be talking in 100 years' time that Joe Canning is, like, easily the best sideline taker of all time in the history of hurling. I just don't see anybody. I don't see anybody surpassing what he's done.
Okay, so that doesn't really help us narrow down there. You've talked a fair bit of rot there. I give you that. You haven't really helped us out. Do you know what? I'm going to bring up given Kilkenny won yesterday, are they now back after beating Tipperary, Shane? That was in the Dylan Quirk match. Yeah, we get to that, Richard. So this is where we're at now.
Yeah, I just can't handle having 2 tip men, 1 and 2.
But who do you want to boot out?
Just quickly, like, does Austin Gleeson come into this at all?
I do think he's class and he's done some of the most spectacular things I've ever seen. But I don't know if some of that is like his athleticism and his ability to jink and jive. Like those 2 brilliant goals against Cork 2014, in Thurles 2017, the one in the All-Ireland semi-final against Cork also. Were they down to wristiness? And like he does have brilliant hands, but I don't know if it's wristiness in the way we're talking about here. Like he's a force of nature type thing when he gets going.
Yeah, potentially so. Richard Hogan just says here, if you're talking about wrists, one who had serious wrists, in my opinion, was Cha. His ability to get power and distance with such a short swing was pretty amazing. Yeah, he did a serious pair of wrists. Are we just, anyone else in tip that we're leaving out? We just go fly through the count. John Troy. Now here, we're talking about 21st century. He obviously did play in that All-Ireland semi-final against Cork in 2000, where he did one of the riskiest things of all time when he took the ball off Brian Corcoran.
Oh yeah,
the chop against Antrim would have been prior to that, but he definitely has to be in the conversation even for the couple of years.
What about Paul Flynn Waterford?
Yeah, I wouldn't. See. I think we're falling on more of what we're looking for now, though. Really, aren't we, though? Do you know what I mean? Like Flynn's wrist, like to be able to do that top-spin effort that he did that day against Cork, even, and to be able to disguise it so well, outrageous. Yeah, I definitely have. We can't have a top 5 without John Troy in it anyway. Like, do you know one of the Antrim lads? Oh, it could be. It might be Sean Elliott. Someone will correct me. But there's one of the Antrim fellas. His nickname is Troy because he did some flick in a game, and that's the admiration that they have for John Troy up in Antrim.
Matthew Landy here makes a comment. Whenever someone mentions good wrists, the first name people say is Bubbles and Owen Kelly. So I'd say 1 and 2 justified. But if you're putting Troy in, right? Did he do his best stuff in the 90s?
Yeah, he probably would have now at county level, to be fair. Now, he still qualifies because, as I said, that brilliant flick on Corkin was in 2000. Whether he actually might have only played 1 year in the 21st century.
Yeah, I think on the basis of that, we'll take our get-out clause there. He's got serious risks, but I think we'll take our get-out. But does who we just mentioned there, Paul Flynn, does he dislodge any of these?
Tricky one. I feel like there's a couple more that we've left off as well.
There possibly is. I'm flicking through the All-Stars from 2000 on here.
And I'd love for the viewers, like even thinking of Kevin Broderick's point in 01, like how wristy was that to be able to do that with one hand. I think he only had his one hand in the hurl the whole way around, and then the second hand only came on to tap over the point. Like Eamon Kennedy was an All-Star in 2000. He never played for Kilkenny again after that day, and he only had 2 years with Kilkenny, such as the ruthlessness of Cody. He'd be in it. Ger Farrer had a fair set of wrists on him. Eugene Cloonan had a fair set of wrists on him.
Paul Kelly had serious wrists.
So we're going to try and keep this, like, this is going to be a South Tip award. Mullinahone, kill it all, you name it. We'll get the top 3 as tip boys.
You're actually upsetting me now making it about South Tip. And of course, Rowan McGrath is mid tip. But yeah, I don't want this to be focused around. We need to get some North Tip in here. And I'm looking through some of the All-Stars, like Andrew O'Shaughnessy had some great hands as well. There's lots of players that would be in and around the discussion. I think like Owen Larkin, unbelievable first touch as well, and great skills and all that kind of stuff. John Milan, obviously force of nature as well. Lara Corbett, very good wrists.
Big Jeffrey McGonigal had a fair set of wrists on him as well, and was an absolute handful. I remember Jeffrey telling me, like, brilliant character. I remember him saying he was getting abused from a lad he was marking one day, and he put the ball in the net. He was like, and he says, "You're calling me fat, and you can't even get close to me," he said. And he just said the player just curled into a ball and retreated for the rest of the game. He had a fair set of wrists on him too. Just think of anybody else in Galway in recent years. Really, when you're probably thinking, the Canning is probably one of the ones that are higher up. Anyone else in Limerick?
Well, Boom Boom 43 says Ronan Maher and Tony Kelly, and like they're like, I think Ronan Maher can hit a sideline as long as he can hit a drive in golf, and Tony Kelly's obviously unbelievable player, but I think he's so predominantly powerful on his left hand side. I don't know if that gives us an easy out to preclude him from the list.
I think the point on Ronan Maher is what you were saying there about somebody hitting a ball even out of their hands and it just takes off and then takes off again. Like when he doesn't even have to open his shoulders. It is literally a flick of the wrist and it's 100 yards, which is kind of unheard of in the game, really. When you look at a lot of lads who have to be on the front foot, he can literally just flick his wrist like that and it just goes a mile. So yeah, I definitely would probably have him in around the conversation. All right, whether he makes the top 5 now is another story. Yeah,
Stephen Bennett, he has also got great skill, great hands. There was somebody else who came to mind, Aaron Gallan, obviously very tiny hitter as well.
Like to do what he does, that flick over the shoulder. And it's funny, one of the things I'd remember on Kelly for most is like the ability to be able to score over the shoulder like that, to use your wrists. And Gallan, you wouldn't say he does it off his right, but he definitely does it off his left. Like Dottie Burke was in on top of him in that All-Ireland semi-final last year, and he was able to lean back and just use his wrists. I'd probably have him high enough up in the conversation now, I have to say.
So, again now, you keep telling us that everyone should be in the list, but you're not telling us who comes out. So, do you want Paul Flynn in here, yes or no?
There's not enough I remember to have him in there. Outside of the Dipper, there's not enough I can say I stand over it, if you get me.
Do you want Aaron Gallan in the top 5 here?
I probably do, yeah.
Ahead of who? Who's dropping out?
Honestly, I'd have Gallan in at number 5, and I'd probably switch Horgan and Hogan.
So Canning out.
That would be my opinion on. What we're talking about is wrist now.
Yeah. Now I have to say, I was just thinking myself, I'd be swapping these two around. So Angolan, well, you see, I think Canning is better, is more two-sided. So I wouldn't be dropping him out for that.
Okay.
And he's done it over a longer period of time.
Yeah, okay. Some of the stuff that Galan has done is outrageously risky.
Well, you could say the same about Canning as well.
Yeah, and it's, in fairness, the line balls, left and right.
That goal against Kilkenny in the 2015 Leinster final, the one that came over his head, to catch it and then be able to strike it like that with such power, I'm not sure many could do that.
Yeah, no, the goal against Clare in Thurles as well, where David Burke passed it to him. Didn't he take it one touch and bang as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are we then, okay, Adrian McGrath says, Owen Kelly tip, his strike off both sides was almost the same. Canning out is nuts. Well, no, we've kept him in there. So are we happy enough that this is the list?
Owen Kelly, John Bubbles O'Dwyer, Patrick Horgan, Richie Hogan, Joe Canning. 'Tis a fair list.
Tis a fair list. Keep the comments coming in. Let us know if you think we're right or wrong. But I'm happy enough to stand over that. Owen Kelly, John Bubbles O'Dwyer, Patrick Horgan, Richie Hogan, Joe Canning. By God, if you had them all in the forward line, I'm not sure who's going to win enough ball for them to show off.
Yeah. We need a couple of bonners in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was enjoyable stuff. Keep the comments coming in, even if you haven't watched live. Let us know afterwards. We'd be interested.